The vitamin D issue that was never properly corrected is something very few people talk about.
For years, we were told that taking 600 IU of vitamin D3 per day was more than enough.
This was not a typo. It was a system-wide miscalculation discovered in 2014, yet never corrected.
When you understand who made the mistake and who benefits from keeping it unchanged, everything becomes clearer.
Today, vitamin D recommendations remain between 600 and 1,000 IU.
Doctors often say this amount supports bone health, immunity, and overall wellness.
However, when vitamin D requirements were first evaluated, a critical error occurred, one that remained hidden for years.
The key issue was simple. The data relied on population averages instead of individual needs. It assumed everyone responds to vitamin D in exactly the same way.
This is like averaging exam scores across many classrooms and assuming every student passed, when in reality, a large portion may still be failing. This major error has led to widespread vitamin D deficiency, with many people never realizing their health problems are connected to low vitamin D levels. In 2014, two researchers reanalyzed the same data used to set the original recommendations. They found that instead of 600 IU per day, the actual requirement was closer to 8,895 IU.
This recalculation was later confirmed by independent research, yet it has been largely ignored.
There is additional context that helps explain why this correction never happened. Organizations considered to be scientific authorities are often viewed as protectors of public health.
However, their primary role has frequently been to protect existing systems rather than uncover uncomfortable truths. In multiple historical cases, outcomes were decided before investigations even began, with conclusions framed to avoid disruption.
This pattern has appeared repeatedly. Toxic substances known for decades. Delayed acknowledgement, repeated calls for more studies, and long periods where evidence was hidden or minimized. By the time the truth was widely accepted, much of the damage had already been done, and accountability had faded.
This same pattern applies to vitamin D. Despite clear evidence that the original calculation was wrong,
The recommendation has not only remained unchanged, but continues to be defended.
If it were a simple mistake, it would have been corrected. Instead, the number has been reinforced, even after the math itself was shown to be incorrect.
Vitamin D is not just about bone health.
It supports immunity, muscles, brain function, metabolism, blood sugar control, weight balance, and cancer protection.
Low vitamin D levels are linked to depression, cognitive decline, and an increased risk of disease.
Yet doctors continue to follow outdated guidelines that recommend extremely low doses for millions of people.
This raises an important question. If the system already knows the number is wrong, why has it still not been fixed?
Today, this organization is viewed as the gold standard of medical guidance worldwide.
Yet this is not a government agency. It is a private organization funded by both public sources and powerful industry interests,
including major food and pharmaceutical companies. When organizations that write health guidelines also receive funding from industry, science often turns into compromise rather than truth.
The vitamin D recommendation is not just a statistical error.
From this perspective, it appears to be a structural failure that remains uncorrected because the system responsible has no incentive to fix it.
To put things into perspective, 600 IU of vitamin D is roughly equivalent to about 3 minutes of sun exposure.
That amount is clearly insufficient, especially considering widespread vitamin D resistance.
Human biology evolved under far greater sun exposure than we experience today.
When sunlight hits the skin, it converts cholesterol into vitamin D, which then enters the bloodstream in an inactive form.
Blood tests measure this inactive form, but they do not show how much vitamin D actually enters the cells. This means blood levels alone do not tell the full story. We are often told that 20 nanograms per milliliter is sufficient.
But sufficient for what?
Preventing severe bone disease? What about people with inflammation, diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease, or autoimmune conditions?
Research suggests that the average person may need close to 9,000 IU daily just to maintain adequate levels. While there is no universal agreement on ideal blood levels, a more functional range appears to be between 50 and 80 nanograms per milliliter to ensure enough vitamin D reaches the cells.
Vitamin D works alongside K2 and magnesium to guide minerals safely into cells. Long after accountability had faded.
Focusing only on vitamin D toxicity ignores the far bigger problem, widespread deficiency.
Toxicity is extremely rare and occurs only with very high doses over long periods.
The main risk, elevated calcium, can be managed with proper balance. Magnesium supports vitamin D function. Vitamin K2 directs calcium correctly. Hydration protects the kidneys, and calcium levels can be monitored.
Since vitamin D comes from sunlight and every cell depends on it, the real question is why deficiency is so common worldwide.
Modern indoor lifestyles, chronic inflammation, high sugar intake, and sun avoidance are the cause. We are told to fear the sun and trust doses based on faulty math, creating a global deficiency crisis. A better approach is sensible sun exposure, vitamin D3 supplementation when needed, and